Welcome to the Camper Dan Files. My name is Chris, and in today's video we are going to discuss the topic of lifting your R50. So let's get into it. All right, so you have your R50 and you've been contemplating for a while raising the suspension, whether you're doing it for looks, performance on a trail, or just to make the R50 a bit better than it already is. In this video, we're gonna go over a few pros and cons that you might encounter from performing this particular mod on your R50. One of the first things that I'm gonna point out is that if you're interested in lifting your R50, the first thing that you need to understand and realize is that a lot of the things that are gonna be necessary to carry out this lift, it's gonna be custom. You're gonna have to fabricate some stuff. Number two, and most importantly, the biggest challenge and obstacle that you're gonna come across if you're not willing to do the work yourself is finding somebody to do the work and do it for a fair cost. When I first decided I was gonna go ahead and lift my R50, one of the things that I did was reach out to my local trusted repair shop and ask them if they'd be willing to throw the parts on for me and I just pay the labor, and they said absolutely not. They do not offer custom work like that because they have to be able to put a warranty on their work, and they're not gonna do that. A lot of shops, first off, they don't even want you providing your own parts, let alone doing something custom like this and then putting their name on it. They're just not gonna do that. The next thing, and this is a question that I'm often asked pretty much all the time, and I just want to clear the air and pull the band-aid off really quick. So as you guys know, my R50 has a 2-inch lift all around. We also have a SE luggage rack on top. We also have a roof basket and an awning as well. Adding all of these additional things from the lift, the roof basket, and the awning, it takes away the R50's coefficiency. So where it concerns fuel economy, because again, I get this question all the time, what are some of the ways that I can go about saving fuel or making my R50 more fuel efficient? And my answer to that is, don't modify it. That's a big, hard, and difficult pill to swallow, but it's true. I've come across this particular topic on the forum pretty much every day on Empora. If you're not willing to sacrifice fuel economy, absolutely do not modify or lift your R50. The lift alone is going to create additional drag on the rig. It's going to sit up higher, which means it's not going to slice through the air as it would have had you just left things stock. And even more so if you're going to add additional things like what I have on the top of mine, the roof basket and also the awning, especially the awning. That creates a lot of additional drag. So another thing, let's talk about the manual locking hubs since you're on the topic of our fuel efficiency. Your manual locking hubs, we are not adding these particular bits and pieces of hardware to increase fuel efficiency. It might be a byproduct. The main reason why we're adding these is to reduce the wear and tear on the drivetrain, mainly the CV axles. For those of you that have a lifted R50, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When you lift your R50, especially if your CV axles are still original to your rig, just be ready and prepared to go ahead and throw a replacement pair of CV axles at this thing because the boots are gonna tear. Mine did pretty much as soon as I lifted my rig. I'm not exaggerating. And that's even if you added manual locking hubs. But if you have no hubs, it definitely increases the likelihood that those things are gonna fail. The mainstay for the manual locking hubs is not to save fuel, but to save wear and tear on your drivetrain. Now, yes, it might translate into some additional fuel savings, but it's negligible at best. We're talking about maybe 1%. Where it concerns making your R50 as fuel efficient as possible, outside of the lift and adding things on top of the rig and just making it heavier, you want to minimize the amount of things that you're toting around when you don't have to. Like for instance, a lot of us in the R50 community that have built our rigs for the premise of off-roading, a lot of our rigs are going to be heavier than most out there. The main thing that you want to do is try to avoid carrying things in your rig that are not necessary. Right now, my R50 is completely empty, with the exception of like miscellaneous hand tools for emergency purposes. Like I have a breaker bar, I have a roadside emergency kit with some jumper cables, you know, things of that nature. Outside of that, this thing is empty. And most importantly, drive conservatively. If you're driving this thing on a local, it's gonna suck up fuel no matter what. I'm gonna be brutally honest with you guys. My R50 typically gets an average of about 14 miles a gallon. I know, that's really bad, but that's from driving locally. If I was to drive this thing 100% on the highway, I could tell you from a recent road trip that I took down to Williams, Arizona. On that road trip, I was amazed. I was averaging between 17 and 18 miles a gallon. And that was with the rig loaded inside and out and carrying 4 passengers and going 70 miles an hour with the cruise control set. So again, drive conservatively. Try to avoid carrying a bunch of unnecessary things in the rig when you can, and that's going to help you to get the best fuel economy, period. If you're going to stomp it every 2 seconds, you guys hear that? Still burning rubber. Forget about fuel economy. Me personally, I try not to think about that too much. I just fill it up when it's empty. We're gonna go on a ride here, guys, because I need to go get a haircut. Try and turn down my AC here so you guys can hear me. If you're gonna lift your R50, be prepared to do a lot of the heavy lifting yourself, because you're gonna be hard pressed to find a shop that's gonna wanna do all the work for you. And if they do, just know you're gonna pay. If you're okay with that, go right ahead. If you can find a shop that will do it and do it correctly. Where it concerns shocks and struts, I recommend using the KYB stuff. But where it concerns travel, mainly for the rear axle, you're gonna want to go ahead and get you a set of Philistines. That's also something that I'm still working on putting together. I just haven't pulled the trigger yet, mainly because, again, you're gonna have to modify stuff. The Philistines, they're not plug and play. You don't just buy them and throw them on your rig. You're gonna have to make modifications. And I just haven't committed to that yet. So far, I've been able to get away with just using the OEM style shocks in the rear, and I haven't had any complaints. The next thing, before you even think about lifting your R50, the first thing you want to do before you start modifying on anything, make sure that the vehicle is dependable. So any bit of maintenance that's been neglected, especially if you just obtained the vehicle from the previous owner, get those things done. You know, go over your suspension, your brakes, maintenance concerning, you know, fluids. Get all your fluids updated, coolant, power steering fluid, brake fluid. If you happen to have a 5-speed R50 like I do, clutch fluid, transmission fluid, transfer case, front and rear differential fluids, get them all swapped out. You know, all that fun stuff. If the vehicle hasn't been tuned up in a while, get it done, or do it yourself if you know how. Filters, you know, the engine air filter, cabin air filter, ball joints too, cover all maintenance. If you're gonna do a tune-up, it will behoove you to make sure you get your valve cover gaskets done, any and all rubber hoses, vacuum lines, get all those things done. Most importantly, your PCV valve, get that swapped out while you're in there. If not, pay the shop to do it while they're in there, because you wouldn't want them to spend all that time and all your money do a tune-up and not take care of those things while they're in there. They're already right there as it is. Might as well just get it done. If you have an R50 Pathfinder, that's a 5-speed, and you don't know the maintenance history of the vehicle, I definitely encourage you, if you can afford it, to get your clutch replaced as well. That way you have a clean slate and you know that everything's been taken care of. Again, the moral of the story is to just make sure that any and all maintenance items have been attended to. No sense in investing all that time and money in lifting your R50 if you haven't taken care of any of those maintenance items. It's not a question of if you're gonna have to do them, it's when. So you might as well just do them and get it over with. Once you get all of the maintenance caught up, the next thing you're gonna do before you modify anything is take the vehicle out and test it in the ways that you intend to use it. Like for myself, I purchased the vehicle so I can get out more and go camping. So I loaded it up and went out and tested it in that aspect to make sure that it met all the needs that it was gonna have to fill. Next thing was off-roading. I actually started off-roading my R50 when it was still in stock trim a lot. Now, once you do that, you take the vehicle out and you test it. You know exactly where it's gonna be lacking, what things you need to improve on, so on and so forth. And again, my build and idea for my R50 might not be the build and idea for your R50. It might look a little bit different. So you definitely want to make sure that you figure out what your needs are before you start modifying things. Once you figure out what you want out of your R50, then you can go ahead and start modifying. Another bit of advice that I'd like to give you guys, especially where it concerns the maintenance, and this is also adaptable to modifications as well. Go over the vehicle, figure out what it needs, write everything down, price everything out. My recommendations is to start out with the cheapest and easiest things on that list first. Prioritize it that way. If you do it that way, you won't feel so overwhelmed and it won't break the bank, so to say. Another thing that I did to facilitate and pay for a lot of the modifications that you guys see on my R50 revolves around my visits to the junkyard. The main bulk of the monies that I use to build my rig and to go out and have different adventures and stuff, all of that revolves around my junkyard parts flipping. In fact, I'll be going over that in a future video with you guys as well. So yeah, guys, if you can commit to those few things that I mentioned there where it concerns lifting your R50, I'd say go for it. Again, it is doable. It is easier to get it done with the help of a friend, but it's definitely something that you can do in a weekend by yourself. It took me 2 days to complete my lift. That was assembling the front struts, removing and replacing the rear coil springs, and getting tires mounted. You just have to have a plan of action and just stick to it. And again, just know that once you start, you're committed. And if you can live with the shortfalls that I mentioned, mainly the fuel economy, then you're good to go. Another thing that I do want to mention as well, where it concerns lifting your R50, maintenance is gonna increase for you, mainly your suspension components. You're gonna find a lot of things are gonna need to be fixed, especially if you didn't bother to replace those items. Things like your CV axles, struts, shocks, end links, sway bar bushings, pretty much any and everything that has to do with the suspension. You're gonna find that you're gonna have to step up the maintenance on those things. And as long as you do that, your time with your lift on your R50 is gonna be an enjoyable one. You have to be willing to turn that wrench, and just know that you're gonna be turning it a lot more often than not. That's also a bit of advice that was shared with me as well in the beginning. And not just shared with me, this is stuff that I learned over time. I just noticed more and more It's like you fix one thing, something else comes up, and so on and so forth. And yeah, in my situation, a lot of that had to do with the fact that all maintenance was neglected on my R50 prior to obtaining it. Every single component on this thing was original. I'm not kidding, all of it. At this point, my suspension is almost completely brand new. Shocks, struts, sway bar end links, upper and lower forelinks in the rear, lower control arms in the front. You got to replace all of that stuff. And you want to do it prior to performing your lift, because I guarantee you, if those things appear to be in good shape right now, I kid you not, the second you lift your R50, you're going to notice that a lot of those components are going to start failing back to back to back to back to back. So again, make a plan, have a budget, start with the easiest and cheapest things to fix first and work your way up. And then from there, go ahead and complete your lift. So that way, once you're done doing your lift, you can actually spend more time enjoying your lift versus fixing things every 2 seconds. And the reason why I'm telling you guys this is because I didn't do those things. And I found that every 2 seconds I had to make different repairs to my rig. And yeah, it didn't bother me that much because I actually enjoy working on my R50. That's my favorite pastime. My wife will tell you, I've been known to spend entire weekends in the garage, and if that's all I was able to do, you know, all is well with the world. That's just how I am. But if you're one of those people where you get annoyed of fixing things all the time, you're gonna want to map things out and complete those tasks accordingly. All right, guys, so I think I'm gonna go ahead and end the video here, as I just got to my destination. I have a 6 o'clock appointment to get a haircut. If you found today's video helpful, go ahead and give it a like. And while you're at it, don't forget to share, comment, and subscribe. Thanks again for stopping by the Camper Dan Files. My name is Chris. And until next time, keep using your Pathfinder as a Pathfinder, on or off the pavement. And if you're ready to make that leap and lift your R50, then go ahead and check out this next video.